Hi there. After years of crocheting, I finally decided to make my own pattern, and I had so much fun doing it, I decided to share it with you guys. So today we'll be making this hat right here. It's using one of my favorite stitches, and I'll be walking you through exactly how to do it step by step. For this project, I'm using a worsted weight yarn. You'll need scissors, a size 5 crochet hook, darning needle, and possibly a stitch marker. We'll begin by making a slip knot. Just loop over your finger, grab your yarn, come back through that loop you created, and then you'll pull tight to create a slip knot that you can adjust on your hook. I'm going to go ahead and chain 10. And then working back into the second chain from our hook, we're going to do a single crochet. And we'll follow along and do a single crochet in each chain until we reach our starting point again. All right, so we should have 9 single crochet. We're going to chain 1 and then turn our work. We'll be working into the back loops only at this point. So you see that little V that forms the stitch? We never work into the stitch that's directly next to our hook. We're going to go back into the back loop only of that first stitch, second one from the hook, and we're going to work single crochets all the way along that row until we reach the end, and we have 9 single crochets along this way as well. And you'll see what that does is it gives a little bend in our fabric. You're going to chain 1, turn your work, and again working the back loops only, you're going to work 9 single crochets back alongside your work again. Chain 1 and turn. You're going to continue to do this exact same thing for as many rows as you would like your brim of your hat to be. This is where you're going to need to measure, or if you're following along with me step by step, you will end up with a teen hat size medium large or an adult size small. An extra small for an adult. I'm going to go ahead and continue working this ribbing pattern until I've received about the length that I would like, and then I'll show you how to measure that and kind of what size to continue going to if you want a larger hat or a smaller hat. I'll meet you when you have about the amount that you would like. Okay, so at this point I feel like I'm getting closer to the size that I'm needing. So I'm going to go ahead and stop and measure really quick. The ribbing that we're making does stretch, so we're looking for about 16 to 17 inches not stretched. So I'm going to need to add some more on here. As you can see, it does stretch pretty far, but the fabric of the hat that we're making is not as stretchy as the ribbing. So you want to make sure you got about 16 or 17 inches unstretched. If it stretches to 21, it's really only going to be about 19 for the hat total, the hat portion. I've got about the inches that I need. If you're following along step by step though, I want to be able to tell you how many rows exactly you'll need. It looks like we've got 52. So with 52 rows, I'm going to go ahead and fold this over so that I can slip stitch my sides together and form the brim of the hat. Slip stitching through the first side. I'm going to start in the very first stitch that we did. It can be a little hard to find, but you'll see it, it's there. First stitch on this side with the tail over my hook, and then the back loop of the first stitch on the opposite side. We're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. After we make it through that, we're going to flip our tail back over our yarn. See there how it's laying over towards my hook? We're going to go through the first side, back loop on the second side, pull through all of them, flip the tail through so that it's on top of my yarn, and then out of the way. I'm only doing this so I don't have to weave it in later. I just like to crochet over things as I go. Again, you're going to continue going through the loop on the side that's closest to you and the back loop on the side that's furthest from you, just stitch for stitch. It should add up to 9 stitches on both. And after each of those slip stitches, you're going to flip your the yarn end or the tail that you began with back over your work so that it gets woven in as you go. I have to add that this step is completely optional with the tail. You can choose to go and just sew it in or, weave your end in when all is said and done. I just like to do it while I'm working so I don't have a bunch of ends to weave in later. Once you put 9 stitches together, you're going to go ahead and chain 1. And then you'll see that, of course, your ribbing is secure together. It forms a nice loop. You're going to flip your work over. Once you flip it, you'll see it is almost indistinguishable from the rest of the ribbing. Like, it looks absolutely seamless. Go ahead and get your yarn. I feed my yarn back through the loop just so it's not tangled up at all. When you flip it, it will sometimes tangle. So anyway, it's flipped over now. We're going to go ahead and begin with our foundation row for our hat. In order to do the foundation row, you're going to want to do a single stitch all the way around that ribbing. And the way that I like to do it to make sure that the hat stays about the size that I would like for this ribbing is basically 1 single crochet for each rib row. If you see the raised portion of the rib, there's a row of single crochets on one side and then a row of single crochets on the other. So starting where I've already chained 1 here, I'm going to work directly back into the row beneath it. And you just slide your hook in wherever it fits. It should fit pretty easily at the top of each of these rows. So you're going to go in 1 here, single crochet, and then on the other side of that ribbing there, you're going to Slide your hook in where it easily fits in the top. First row and then second row there. You're going to slide it into that second row there on that side of the ribbing. Do a single crochet there. And then the same thing here, you're going to have a raised portion. You're going to go in the top of one side of it. Then on the other side of that raised portion, you're going to go in the top there as well. That should bring you to your next set of 2. So you've got your single crochets, the raised portion, and then a single crochet. You're just going to single crochet just like that, right along in the top of each of those rows. So when you come out on the other side, you should have a total of 52 single crochet all the way around. I did say that I would tell you how to make a larger hat. It's very simple. You want a larger hat, add more inches to your ribbing before you actually connect the two. For a size chart, you can Google it. I'll go ahead and add some sizes in the description as to what size to make your ribbing to make it a little easier for you. Like I said, today we're making a teen, medium, large, or an adult extra small, small. If you want to go bigger than that, you can do a men's size, and I will go ahead and list those sizes in the description for you. Either way, whichever you choose to make, you do want to go ahead and add 1 single crochet per rib row. As we reach the end of our foundation row, we're going to find that original stitch that we started with. This is where your stitch marker comes in handy. If you may need it, you're going to want to go ahead and place your stitch marker when you do the very first stitch. But I can see it myself, so I'm just going to go ahead and slide through that first stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch the 2 rows together. And you should have a really even foundation row all the way around your work. We're going to chain 1, and then to begin our second row of the hat itself, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to go directly into the one we just started and do a double crochet. So going right back into the stitch that you just started, you're going to do a double crochet. Then moving on to the next single crochet stitch there, you're going to double crochet right into the top, and you're going to continue on double crocheting all the way around. And I'll meet up with you at the end of this row. As we reach the end of the row, you'll see here where we have our single stitch that we began with, and then the first double crochet we did into that same stitch. We're going to go to the top of the double crochet, our first double crochet of the row, and we're going to slip stitch the 2 rows together. That little single stitch, we're not going to work into it. It's just going to hang out there. It actually ends up looking extremely even at the end of our work, and it makes sure that the line up the back of the hat is almost not noticeable at all and goes up completely straight. So you're going to want to leave it there and just leave it be. Next, to begin our third row, we're not going to worry about that little single stitch that I was talking about. We're going to work in our double stitch, the first double stitch from the row below. And we're going to do a front post double crochet, which is where you slide around the post of the crochet stitch itself and not into the top of the stitch. You're going to slide around the post, pull up a loop, and then work a double crochet as you normally would. For the next stitch, we are going to work a back post double crochet. So you're going to go behind your work, and you can see the post looks just slightly different from the back, but same stitch. You're going to yarn over, go behind your work, and around the post of the stitch from the back. Then you're going to yarn over from behind and pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2, and yarn over and finish up that double crochet stitch. You'll see it kind of sets the stitch back in the fabric, which is exactly what you want. You want those front post double crochets, which is the next stitch you do, to sit forward, and the back post double crochets to kind of sit back in the work. It creates a nice woven pattern at the end that looks phenomenal. That is how you get that woven look in there. So you're going to go and alternate front post double crochet and then back post double crochet all the way around this row. Okay, front post double crochet, yarn over and pull through, and then back post double crochet to the next one, yarn over and pull through, and yeah, all the way around. I will meet you at the end of this row to let you know about the next one. At the end of our row, you'll see that if you have an even amount of stitches, which we should in multiples of 2, you will be ending the opposite of how you began. So the first one was a front post, the last one should be a back post. And then you're going to slip stitch right into the top of that first double crochet of the row. To start our next row, we should have a foundation row, our first row of double crochets, and then our first row of front post back post stitches. That brings us to row 3. So row 4, we're going to actually chain 1 and then begin the opposite of what we did in row 3. So if we've got a front post, which we did to begin with, we are going to work that as a back post now. That's going to complete the woven look that we're looking for. It's going to create an inward outward appearance. So back post double crochet first, and you're only going to be wanting to back post double crochet around that actual double crochet, not the single stitch that we begin with, just to clarify. And then the very next one, we're going to front post double crochet. It's easy to keep up with where you should be, because if you are looking to work, if you're looking at a front post double crochet as your next stitch, if it is already a front post double crochet, then we obviously know we're going to be working a back post double crochet. And you're working the exact opposite of what you did in the previous row. And you're going to just continue to do that all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row. And just like all the rows up to this point, we are going to go ahead, make sure that we end the row opposite what we began, and then slip stitch the top of the first double crochet into the last stitch there. We're going to chain 1, and from this point forward, you're going to continue to alternate rows 3 and 4 all the way up until you have the desired amount of inches that you need for the size hat you're doing. Again, if you're following along step by step, I actually end up adding enough rows to reach 7 inches, and I will let you know exactly how many rows that equals up to in just a moment. But yeah, you're just going to alternate rows 3 and 4 all the way up. So 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up until you reach your desired amount of rows. So I end up doing 14 total rows before we start to decrease on this particular size hat. Go ahead and measure this just to make sure that it is the height that we are looking for. I like to leave about 2 inches at the top to close up. So this is about 7 inches. This hat size would typically be 8 to 8.5 inches long, so that's about right. 7 inches is going to leave us about 1.5 inches to 2 inches at the top, and the brim should be should give us enough space to have a foldable brim. So to decrease, we are going to start very much as we typically have been. We are going to front post double crochet and then back post double crochet. We're going to do that across 6 stitches, alternate. All right, once we reach the end of our 6th stitch, we're going to do a front post, back post, double crochet cluster. And we're going to start by yarning over. We're going to do a typical front post beginning. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 1. We are not going to yarn over and pull through the end of that stitch, however. We're going to leave both of those on the hook. We're going to yarn over. We're going to go through our next stitch as well. So Because we are doing 6 stitches between each of these, we are going to continue with our front post, back post alternating pattern, even when we're doing our decreases. That'll be a little bit different on our odd stitch rows. I'll talk to you about that on the next one. So we're going to back post double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2. That should leave us with 3 of the 3 yarn overs on our hook. So we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those so that the 2 double crochets come together into one. That forms a cluster. From here, we're going to go ahead and move forward with 6 more front post, back post, double crochets alternating. So 1, 2, a little fiddly, sorry about that. 2, those back post crochets can be a little difficult sometimes if they get hooked on anything else. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And after we complete those 6, we are going to again do a cluster together. So front post double crochet, do not complete the stitch, just yarn over, pull through, leave that on your hook, yarn over and start your back post double crochet, yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 of those. You're going to continue doing that all the way around this row. So every 6 stitches, we're going to stop and do a decrease where we do alternate and then join those 2 together in a cluster. I'll meet you at the end of the row. You may notice as you reach the end of your row that you're not going to end on an even number. Like you won't have 6 and then a decrease to end your row. You may have 3 stitches, you may have 4. It just depends on the size hat you're making. That's okay. I have 4 additional stitches that are not going to end in a decrease. That's totally fine. This fabric is super forgiving when it comes to those added stitches because it's a woven look either way. So do not worry about that at all. You're going to slip stitch just as we have been right there at the end to join the 2 rows together, and then chain 1 to begin our next row, our next decrease row. You're going to do 5 double crochet stitches, front post, back post alternating, front post, back post alternating. When you reach the 5th stitch, you're going to then do a decrease. And I'll let you know that that decrease is going to have a single front post or back post stitch to begin with, and then you're going to see a cluster right below it. So this will begin our decrease here. You're going to see your single stitch here, which will do a front post, and then you'll see a cluster right next to it. That's where we clustered the 2 together on the previous row. When we go around those, we're going to go around the both of them as one post. So we're going to start by going front post double crochet. You're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then leave those on your hook. For your odd row decreases, so this one is 5 stitches between, you're actually going to pull through as a front post just like you did for the first one in the cluster. So we're not going to alternate front post, back post for our decreases. Both will be a front post decrease, or if it happens to be on a back post, it will both be a back post decrease. For your odd rows, for your even rows, you will continue to do front post, back post alternating on your decrease. Sorry if that's confusing at all. If you need help with that at all, just let me know in the comments and I'm happy to talk you through it. But yes, on your odd rows, so with this one being 5 stitches in between your decreases, you are going to do your 5 stitches and then decrease to the same direction. So if it's a front post for your first stitch of the decrease, it will also be a front post for the second stitch of your decrease. So you're going to leave those 2 on your hook. Then you're going to go completely around that cluster as a post, the 2 together, and you're going to front post around the 2 of those, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 3 left on the hook. And then you're going to continue to do that all the way around. Again, you will have 4 additional stitches at the very end of the row. just like you did at the beginning or at the end of the previous row. That's totally fine. It won't make a difference at all at the end of the pattern. Now that we've reached the end of row 16, we'll go ahead and slip stitch and join those together, chain 1, and as you can see, if you lay your work flat, you'll notice it is starting to curve in at the top there. Those decreases are going to take a pretty sharp curve in, but because we are decreasing evenly along the rows, you won't end up with a bunch of bunching at the top of the hat, which is great. We're going to move forward with alternating front posts and back post double crochets for only 4 stitches this time. So we went 6, 5, and now 4 stitches. And at the end of that 4th stitch, we are going to see very much the same thing that we did at the end of the previous row. We are going to front post double crochet, leave that unended on the hook, and go completely around the cluster. And because it's an even row, you are going to continue to alternate even inside of your cluster, front post, back post, front post, back post. And again, you're just going to do 4 of the regular front post or back post double crochets in between your decreases. And then when you reach the end of your 4th crochet, you're going to do a alternating front post, back post double crochet cluster. Make sure that you're going all the way around the posts of the cluster of the previous row so that everything cinches up properly at the top of your hat. Okay, and you're just going to continue that around, and I will meet you at the end of the row for row 17. Slip stitch to end that row, and you will notice even more of a curving in. That's good, looks perfect. We'll go ahead and begin the next row. You're going to front post double crochet or back post double crochet, whichever you begin on, and alternate for 3 stitches and then do your decrease. Since this is an odd row, keep in mind you are going to decrease in the same direction for your front post, back post. Instead of front post, back post, it'll be front post for your entire decrease. And then you will move back into alternating front post, back post for your regular double crochets. Each decrease is going to go in the same direction. All right, and then I'll meet you at the end of the row. Sorry, I'm ending up a slightly off camera here, but you're going to slip stitch to join your rows again there. And you'll start to see where we are definitely closing up at the top here. And it's tapering in really nicely. That's what we're looking for. A nice rounded shape that doesn't bunch at the top. To begin our next row, we'll follow the same cadence that we have up to this point. So you're going to chain 1 and then front post, back post, alternate, but only for 2 stitches this time. As you front post and back post those 2 stitches, we are then going to decrease following, and because it is an even number, we're going to decrease alternating as well. So front post, back post. There you go. Same thing, just front post 1 stitch for the 2nd stitch, back post. And then to do our decrease, we are going to front post double crochet, yarn over, pull through 1, and then back post double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2 there, and then pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3. And you'll continue all the way around like that again. At the end of this row, those extra 4 stitches that have just been kind of hanging out will become a front post, back post, alternating, and decrease. So you'll start to decrease there as well. It'll just work its way in seamlessly. You won't even notice. As we come to the end of that row, we'll slip stitch, and you'll notice the top is again closing up almost all the way. We've only got 2 more rows of decrease. This one will be 1 front post double crochet. I'm sorry, it's a back post to start with. So 1 back post double crochet, And then we move straight into the next decrease, which will include that next post and then the cluster next to it from the previous row. Because this is a single stitch between them, which is still considered an odd number, we'll go ahead and do those both to the front. It'll be front post around the single one and then front post around the cluster. And then we'll back post for our single double crochet. And then we'll do a decrease next with front post, yarn over, pull through 2, and again a front post around that cluster, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through all 3 on your hook. And you'll do that all the way around until you reach the end of the row. At the end of the row, we slip stitch to join the beginning and end together. And for this last row of decreases, we are actually, that's looking really nice. So for the last row of decreases, we're actually going to decrease all the way around, which is still considered even. So you will front post, double crochet to begin. And then, of course, you don't finish that off. You're just going to yarn over, pull through 2, and then go directly into your cluster that's right there next to it. And you're going to back post, double crochet around that cluster. Even rows, we still alternate. And you're going to finish up that cluster decrease. Same thing for the next stitch, etc., all the way around. There will be no singles in between. You just decrease, decrease, decrease until you reach the end of your row. Don't worry, it can be fiddly because this is a much smaller opening than we've been dealing with up to this point. So those back post double crochets can get hung up a little bit, but if you stick with it, I know you can do it. Yep, you're just going to continue that all the way around, and I will meet you back at the end of the row. Once we reach the end, you'll see the original double crochet decrease decrease that we began with. It can be a little bit difficult to find if you don't know what you're looking for, which is why a stitch marker might be useful for some. But yeah, you're just going to slip stitch to join those 2 together, and you'll see that what we've got here is a really small opening now, and that has just beautifully decreased all the way up. So it's nice and rounded at the top. No gathered bunching up there. It's just a nice rounded hat up there. And you can absolutely end it right here if you like. You can fasten off and sew your opening shut at the top. Really cute woven hat. Voila. But if you would like a little pom-pom on top, I'm going to show you how to do that. I do not... this is where you could close it up from the inside. And again, it's such a small opening. I will show you how to close it up from the inside. I'll show you how to close it up when I finish the pom-pom. But you can either close it up here. I do not like traditional pom-poms. I don't like making them. That's just a personal preference. If you do, feel free to go ahead and place whatever pom-pom you like here. You can use a faux fur pom-pom. You can make one from yarn. I'm choosing to go ahead and do a curly Q one, which I absolutely love. I'm going to do a whole tutorial on this separate as well, but for this hat, I'm going to show you how to walk through it. It's fully attached to the hat as you go. So as you can see, we go ahead and we chain 12. And then starting with the second chain from our hook, we're going to go ahead and single crochet 2 single crochets into each of those chains. So starting with that second one, you're just going to single crochet 1 and then single crochet a second one into the same chain, then move on to your next chain. As you do this, I'm sure many of you know, as you do this, you work your way down that chain, and because you're adding an additional stitch into each chain, it will naturally just begin to curl. I love the look of this. I love how sturdy it is. It's very much attached. You don't have to worry about your pom-pom coming loose or losing any of its fuzzies or anything like that. Like, it is very much attached to the hat. So this is just how I like to do it. You're going to continue all the way down your chain until you reach the very last, or your very first chain, the very first chain of this sequence. And you're going to place your last 2 single crochets in that. And then you're going to search in that circle for your next stitch space. And you're going to slip stitch into that so that you secure that little curly Q down to your actual opening. And then you're going to move forward. You're going to chain 12 again. Chain 12 is my preference. If you want longer curly Qs, please feel free to chain as many as you like. 15 to 16 is going to give you more of a floppy pom-pom. I just like mine to stand up a little bit, so 12 is kind of the sweet spot for me, but you can do more or less. And you're just going to single crochet 2 into each of those chains. And when you reach the bottom of the chain, you're going to slip stitch into your next stitch space in that circle at the top of your hat. That's going to secure that curly Q down, and you're going to just do that all the way around the circle. You're going to continue on until you should have 6 curly Qs at the end. I went ahead and chain 12 and added a 7th one just to make my pom-pom more full. If you want to slip stitch into the same base stitch and add 2 curly Qs for each stitch that you have around the top, you'll end up with 12. It really just depends on how fluffy you want your pom-pom to be. But for this one, I ended up with 7, and you see you just secure it to the base, slip stitch in, and then chain 12 again. You're going to do that all the way around. I will meet you at the end where I will end up having 7. Once you've finished your curly Qs, you can go ahead and fasten off your yarn. And at this point, we will sew the top shut. Don't worry, it's minimal sewing. You can do this from the inside or the outside. It really doesn't matter. The inside is what I prefer, just so that I can then anchor it down and weave my ends in on the inside. I don't have to worry about going back through the work, but either one's fine. You'll see it's a really small hole. I'll drop my needle down through there, and I'll show you how to close it up from the inside. Since the pom-pom portion of this is attached to the outside, I have decided I'm actually going to do the weaving from the outside and then cinch it closed from the inside. And you just follow along, you'll see what I mean. The stitches that connect the curly Qs to the base, we're going to be going just below those and working a regular sewing stitch just towards the hat and then away from the hat. Just make sure you loop into that original stitch below your curly Q. You're just going to kind of loop around that stitch towards the inner portion of the hat, and then in the next one you're going to go loop around that base stitch to the outside of the hat. You're going to work that same way back and forth around until you reach your original curly Q base. at this point, I'm going to go ahead and drop my needle down inside. I'll be working from the inside now. We're gonna carefully turn your hat inside out. And then you'll see the base of our circle there. Just grab hold of that yarn, gently pull. Shouldn't be difficult to pull shut. It's just gonna cinch it all the way closed. It's a nice flat closure at that point. And once you have it pulled shut, you're gonna anchor it by just grabbing on to, yes, it pulls your curly Q nice and in a kind of an upwards motion there. So it kind of pops up once it closes. And then from the inside, we'll go ahead and anchor it by grabbing hold of just a few threads close to the middle portion of that. You can sew across a few times just to make sure that it's not going to come open. If you do sew across, which I like to, you want to keep it very close to the center of the cap. No need to go further out. That will cause bunching, which we have tried to avoid by decreasing the way that we did. So you want to make sure that you keep your stitches, your sewing stitches really close to the very middle on the inside there. And once you've gone through a few times and sewn it across, it really should be very secure. And you're going to grab just a few little strands of yarn, go underneath of those, and then tie a knot so that it doesn't come undone. You want to do that a few times. I know this is mostly preference, but when it's a wearable, I like to make sure that none of my threads or yarns are going to come loose. Someone will be wearing this and it will be washed probably many times, so you want to make sure that it's going to hold up through all that wear and tear. So definitely tie it off. I like to do at least 3 tie-offs to make sure that it's really good and tied down. And then you're going to weave your end into the hat. To do that, you want to make sure that you're going down the length of the hat to weave. You do not want to go side to side because you don't want to impede movement of the hat. You don't want to impede any of the stretch that the hat should have. You are going to work down the inside of those stitches, just grabbing a few pieces of yarn as you go. As you see, when you turn it inside out and you're looking at the outside, your needle should not be visible on the outside because we want to be working on the inside of those stitches. You're going to go down, 4 or 5 stitches down. Do not pull it tight. You just want it to be pulled to where it's in with the rest of the stitches. Then you're going to work right back up. You want to leave a little loop out. However, don't go directly back up the way you came. You want to go around one of the loops and then back up through. That way, your yarn has something to anchor it to, so it's not just slipping all the way back up through where it just came. Sorry if that sounds confusing. It's really not. If you kind of look and see what I'm doing here, it's really not complicated at all. You're just working in the inside or back side of your stitches. So you've gone down once, up once. You're definitely going to want to go down again. And because I'm extra, I always go up again. Again, it's a wearable. So you want to make sure that this is not going to come loose at all. I like to make sure that any products that I make are quality. So that's down again. We're going to go up one more time at least. As you pull, you should see it shouldn't be bunching a lot. That's good. You don't want it to have any pinch points. It should be woven in to where it's pretty sturdy and stuck in there. All right. And it looks like I'm going to do one more for good measure. And after this last one, I do believe I finally go ahead and fasten it off. Yep, And then you can just clip off any excess yarn, and you are all done. Pat yourself on the back. You did great. Look at there. Now you absolutely can wear it just like this, or if it's a bit long or you're looking for a snugger fit to the top of the head, then feel free to flip up that ribbed portion and you can end up with a shorter hat. Overall, this ended up being right at about 9 inches from the top to the base of the ribbing. Like I said, 9 inches is typically what a men's hat would be, but that's going to allow you to be able to flip up the brim of the hat, and I think that is super cute. It gives it a really nice finished look that I really like. All right, let's see what it looks like on our mannequin. I really hope you guys enjoyed making this with me. It was my first pattern and I'm happy to share it with you. If you'd like to see more crochet content from me in the future, feel free to like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks for joining me. Enjoy your new hat and have an amazing day.